Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwen, writer on TV and Satellite Week, What's on TV, TV Times and WhatToWatch.com. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday, the 2nd of May 2025, including true crime drama Suspect, the shooting of Jean-Charles de Menezes on Disney+, and Netflix couples comedy The Four Seasons, starring Tina Fey and Steve Carell.
And we'll also be checking out Katie Piper's new US prison documentary series on You, and dangling off a skyscraper in Die Hard style thriller Cleaner on Sky Cinema and Now. But first, Ian, tell me, what is in the news, please?
The Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, arrives on Disney Plus this week. I saw it in the cinema and it's very, very good. It stars Timothée Chalamet. And Netflix is going to air a rockumentary about one of my favourite musicians, PJ Harvey. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, on another musical note, Ian, Little Alex Horne's comedy, The Horne Section, is coming back for a second series on Channel 4, and that'll be streaming later this month.
Well, let's get straight into it with some high-stakes action in a new film which arrives on Sky Cinema on Friday the 2nd of May and will be available on Now. It's called Cleaner, and here's a clip.
Greedy, needy, cocky. We're going to shine a light on your crimes. Cheers. Great to have you on board.
Any attempt to gain access, the whole building explodes.
Someone got inside.
One of the cleaners. Find them.
Put it down.
This has been compared to Die Hard, and you can see exactly why. So it stars Daisy Ridley as Joey, who is a former soldier working as a job I don't think I'd fancy, a window cleaner on a high-rise building. Okay, so if you suffer from vertigo, this might not be one for you. And essentially, eco-terrorists occupy the building because there's a big meeting of all the shareholders of this energy company that's been polluting and doing various other things. They're led by Clive Owen, and one of the chief executives of the company is played by my former upstairs neighbour, Rufus Jones. But, spoiler alert, neither of them sticks around very long. So you have to have a good villain, and there is one in this. He's called Noah, played by Taz Skylar, and he kind of hijacks the eco-terrorist operation, and he has his own very radical agenda. Meanwhile, because Joey was dangling on a cradle outside the building when this attack took place, she's the only one who can save the day. It's directed by Martin Campbell, who directed GoldenEye, the Bond film. And yeah, if you want a sort of high-stakes action film, I think it's really good. And it's got a little bit of human drama in it as well, because Joey has this autistic brother. So you see a little bit of their relationship. So yeah, I think it's well put together. Good baddies. A great action hero in Daisy Ridley. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird. I mean, for me, I just kind of, I sort of understood it, but it didn't really have any real depth to it. I mean, we've got, like you say, we've got the baddies and the kind of, you know, the action-packed sort of element to it. But I don't know. The premise of it is really quite basic, as you say, isn't it? You know, window cleaner. I suppose the kind of her challenging day and the fact that she's kind of looking after her autistic brother and what comes with that and the difficulty. But I don't know. I kept feeling like there was a bit like a joke. There's a punchline coming here, and there's a bit more to this. And I didn't really get that sense with it. It's not something that I think, do you know what, I'm going to always remember that. I mean, I have got a memory like a fish anyway, so it'll be gone tomorrow. But actually, with this, yeah, I didn't think there was much to write home about, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Over on Netflix, it arrived on Thursday, the 1st of May. we have a new comedy series called The Four Seasons, and here's a clip.
We've been friends for 30 years.
I love all of you, plus...
Please do not talk about your other hotter friend group. It hurts my feelings.
I know, but that's so hot.
Are you guys happy?
What kind of question is that? Come on.
We sit in the same room, monitoring different screens. We're like coworkers at a nuclear facility.
Now, this is much more up my street. This is really quite funny, but also it has it's kind of, there's sadness in it as well. So this follows three couples who have been friends for absolutely years, and some of us will kind of relate to this. There are that group of friends who then you meet your long-term partner, and you still all get on, and you all still go away together, and it might be once a year or a long weekend or whatever, and this is them, and they share these regular holidays. But as time goes on, and this reminds me of something that happened earlier in the week in my own life with someone else, they started to question their marriages and their friendships and their relationships. And because one of the couples decides to divorce. And of course, once that happens, the whole dynamic of that group completely changes. And this is an 8-part series, so I mean it's quite bingeable actually. Once you start watching it, I think you'll want to keep watching it, because you want to see what actually ends up happening, because every part of you wants this couple that's divorcing, well I did anyway, to get back together, for the kind of equilibrium to be resumed and restored. And it takes a while, because there's clearly ups and downs. What isn't helped is, of course, that there is another extra person involved in this, and that makes it all the harder. And I just think it makes you question absolutely everything. And I think certainly when there's been all those years, all that history between friends, it suddenly starts to make you question, and also because this particular guy has gone and met someone and is living his best life. You hear of midlife crises, don't you? And people going off with younger people and what have you. And it all feels a bit, oh God, yeah, here we go again. But it's sort of played out really quite well with real comedic value. But also, as I say, you come away thinking, God, you can imagine it happening within a group of friends, and why wouldn't it? Probably, statistically, out of 3 or 4 couples, one of them will probably end up in divorce, sadly. So I think it's quite relatable in many ways, but that sort of funny narrative that underpins the whole thing works really well. But I do like it when there's that very funny, laugh out loud stuff, but also the depth of feeling quite sad. And as I say, I do think it's relatable. Thoroughly enjoyed what I've seen, Ian. How about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And it's based on a 1981 film from Alan Alda, the star of MASH, of course. I'm sure I've seen that, but I don't particularly remember thinking it was superb or a classic. But this is from the team behind the brilliant sitcom 30 Rock, which starred Tina Fey, who is in this, and you've also got Steve Carell. So you've got absolute comedy royalty from America headlining in this, and it's very believable. So Steve Carell's character Nick, while they're all on holiday together, he has a chat with his male friends and explains, I'm unhappy, I've been unhappy for ages, I've got nothing in common with my wife, she's not interested in doing anything, and I want to make the most of what time I have left. And that's kind of understandable. And then at the end of episode 1, there's just a heartbreaking moment, which I will not reveal. So the script is good. The performances are really believable. They're great characters. I think it's, from what I can remember, which isn't much, I think it's a huge improvement on the 1981 film. And yeah, I really enjoyed episode 1. It's like a proper grown-up comedy drama about just everyday life, not rather than dangling off a building fighting eco-terrorists. So yeah, I really liked it. Over on Disney Plus arriving on Wednesday, the 30th of April. This has had a lot of press, unsurprisingly. It's new true crime series, Suspect, the shooting of Jean-Charles de Menezes. And here's a clip.
There's now no doubt. The man shot yesterday has no connections to terrorism.
We can't let this define us.
I can't stop thinking that all of the stuff they said about Jean-Charles isn't true.
So it's nearly 20 years since Jean-Charles de Menezes, who was a Brazilian electrician, was shot dead by police at Stockwell Underground Station in London when he was mistakenly thought to be a terrorist. And this is his story. And you've got Conleth Hill playing Sir Ian Blair, who was the Met Commissioner. You've got Edison Al-Qaidi playing Jean-Charles. You've also got Russell Tovey as Brian Paddock, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, and Emily Mortimer as Cressida Dick. You've also got Danny Mays. So it's a strong cast, and it's a hell of a story. And it starts off with the backdrop. So it was the 7/7 bombings in London, and there was a really good documentary series about that on BBC iPlayer, which is harrowing but well worth checking out. And it's all about, eyewitness accounts from people who, had to go back to the scene of those tube and bus bombings. So we start there, and it's sort of setting the environment that allowed this terrible tragedy to unfold. So initially there are the bombings, and then, which is probably not as well remembered, there was a second series of attempted bombings which didn't come off because the bombs failed. Okay, so that's the background. Is London is absolutely gripped by terror. There could be attacks at any time, and this is sort of the basis that police are working on. And you don't get to the incident involving Jean-Charles and the police. I think it's sort of at the end of the second episode, but when it arrives, it is absolutely shocking. The circumstances of his death are horrific. And we were told this story, we were given this narrative. Oh, he jumped over the barriers and ran away from police, and then he confronted them on the train. None of that happened. He just entered the tube station, sat down on a train, and then you'll see what happens. And it is utterly appalling. And yes, we see, various members of the Met and how they deal with the sort of the police response and the public response to the tragedy. And a lot of lies were told. You've also got Max Beasley in this. So people might think they know this story, but and it's written by Jeff Pope, who worked on Philomena and Stan and Ollie, which my upstairs neighbour was also in. It's really well put together, and just the shocking truth that was covered up about the needless killing of this young man. So it's gripping stuff. It's another great drama telling the truth about a real life story, and we've had a few of those recently. And I was gripped by it. What did you think, Hannah?
Do you know what? It's things like this. I'm a bit of an ostrich, and I bury my head in the sand, and I try and almost delete things like this because it's just so awful, frankly. I mean, it's just so awful. And when you watch this, you will realise how much more awful it is than you originally thought it was. Because, as you say, there was so much misinformation, so many untruths, and this innocent man lost his life with a catalogue of error. And so, seeing that play out, and as you say, it's sort of a bit further on that it all kind of happens, seeing the context of it all is incredibly interesting. But the bit that really hit home for me is the family of him, who tried desperately to find out the truth, because I think when you need closure, you're in another country, it's very hard, you might not speak the language, whatever those stumbling blocks are, that information was very, very hard to get. And I think that must be just truly appalling for anyone who's lost a brother, a son, whoever, not to have that. And for me, that's what really, really massively hit home. And all I can hope with something like this is that accidents happen. We know that. This just seems a catalogue of error, but also it feels very much, well, I hope that there's just been some serious learnings, because no one should lose an innocent life. It's as simple as that. And it's incredibly moving, incredibly upsetting at times, and you learn so much. You really do. I thought I'd read about it all at the time. As I say, I'm pretty good at deleting things from my mind that upset me. But this brought it all back, but so much more that wasn't reported at the time. Definitely worth a watch.
Well, we're going to finish over on You, where a new documentary series is available as a box set. It's called Katie Piper, Locked Up in Louisiana, and here's a clip.
I'm Katie Piper, and I'm spending a month inside one of the most notorious jails in America.
A little bit nervous, because there's always that trepidation of how are they going to receive me?
15 years ago, a violent attack changed my life forever.
They probably don't think that I've had an insight to that life. I spent a lot of time thinking that I should have killed him.
And since then, I've been trying to understand why people commit violent acts.
Yeah, do you know what? Katie Piper is a real inspiration, isn't she? She does a lot of work with Woman and Home, and we're huge fans of hers, to be honest with you. She was attacked, it was an acid attack 15 years ago, and she has campaigned tirelessly for women. And she's become a household name, and she's just so, in my opinion, completely genuine, and just somebody who thoroughly deserves to do well in life. And this is a really interesting new walk for her, really, new outing, because she goes to New Orleans, Louisiana, and she spends a month in a parish prison, and that's one of the most notorious jails in the US. I find this kind of thing fascinating anyway. It doesn't matter who's there, I have to hasten to add. But Katie Piper, having been through what she's been through, and having to see someone that did that to her sentenced, and what that looks like, and being through, an act of criminality, if you like, against her, it has more, I don't know, gravitas, for me anyway. And she spends time with women who are accused of awful, awful crimes. And as with all these things, once you start to hear these people talk, lots of questions start to come. Should they be there? Was there a reason they did it? Were they provoked, etc., etc.? And there's one particular, I think it's the first episode, and she meets a woman who is accused of killing her husband. But so on the surface, she's killed her husband. She should be inside. Of course she should. She was charged with second-degree murder, and that carries a mandatory life sentence there. But once you start to listen to her story, she'd suffered a lifetime of abuse as a child. She then suffered abuse at the hands of her husband. And during one of those incredibly violent attacks, she shot her husband in self-defense. And that is why she is there. And this is what I enjoy about stuff like this, because you go out with this thought, well, you've killed someone, of course you should be inside, you are a threat to society, and then you hear the other side, and you think, how many times is the law an ass? That's the phrase, isn't it? How many times is there more to this than actually meets the eye. Should she be in there? Should she not be in there? That's the question. Should she really be there? Is she a danger? And that goes for so many different people. And that's what this opens up for me. This opens up that conversation of how many people are banged up, rightfully, wrongfully, whatever, but their stories, and giving them a mouthpiece to say them. I think it's incredibly moving. I cried quite a lot, particularly during that one. I don't know what you think, Ian, but I'm a huge fan of Katie Piper, and I think this is great.
Yeah, I got so much admiration for her. And as you say, because of her own shocking backstory, gives this real authenticity. Because, you've got people like Piers Morgan visiting American prisons to interview serial killers. But, she has a genuine insight into the experiences of some of these women. So most of them seem to be behind bars either because they've been in abusive relationships and they've fought back, or because they've been addicted to drugs, or a combination of the two. And I did actually cry watching it. What really struck me, apart from the individual stories, was the relationship, between the inmates, and also their relationship with one of the prison guards. It's so touching. So this prison guard brings in a sort of big Bluetooth speaker, and they all learn to do a dance routine together with the prison officer. And it's just, and Katie joins in as well, and it's just so touching. You cannot imagine anything like that happening in a male prison. You really can't. So yeah, there have been a lot of documentaries with celebs, going inside high security prisons. This one is really good and stands out. And, let's see Katie Piper, let's see her doing more of this kind of stuff, because she's very good at it. Well, we've got to that time, Hannah, where we find out what the hell you've been binge watching this week.
Well, we had a bit of a Saturday night in as a family, and we watched Mufasa. Which is when we talked about this, but it's the precursor to The Lion King. It's really very sweet and really very good, and certainly one for all the family, and answers a lot of questions. So there you go.
Oh, does it? And where's that available, Hannah?
We watched that on Disney Plus.
Super duper. Well, I also watched a movie. It's the Buzz Lightyear movie, the Buzz Lightyear prequel to Toy Story, which I very much enjoyed. And because there's a new and final series of the serial killer You on Netflix, I was catching up on that because I'm a little bit behind. And of course, our own Charlotte Ritchie, who I interviewed yesterday for a new ITV thriller that's coming up. Yes, she's in seasons 4 and 5 of that, and jolly good she is too. And yes, of course, You is on Netflix, by the way. Well, we've just got time to look ahead to next week's offerings. So what's on the agenda, Brenda?
Well, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman take a long way home as their motorbike travelogue returns on Apple TV+.
And we're in the court of King Louis XVI as French period drama Marie Antoinette lands on BBC iPlayer. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,
keep watching!
Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. It began with the forging of the Great Rings. To celebrate the 300th episode of Verbal Diorama, a complete history and legacy of the film adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, including Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's celebrated The Lord of the Rings trilogy, and Kenji Kamiyama's The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Listen to the entire story in your podcast app of choice every Thursday in May by subscribing to Verbal Diorama, the podcast all about the history and legacy of movies you know and movies you don't. For the time will soon come when hobbits will shape the fortunes of all.